The topic was attack against the offensive defense. Now today, Mr. Klaus Feldman will teach us with his diagrams, with his videos, attack in defensive defense. So this is also again a very important topic for us, for future of our handball in our country. So I request all the participants, please mute yourself during the lecture and don't disturb the teacher who is taking the class. So not taking much time, I now hand over to Mr. Klaus Feldman to please start the class.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to our fourth week of webinars. This is the last one, the last week we start, and this is the last topic that deals with attack. So we developed this topics in attack. We started with the individual profiles in the positions. Afterwards, we came to the different individual techniques: dribbling, ball handling, pass and catch, throwing, and very important, and you will see that today too, the different ways of how to move and how to act on the positions. So we called it the basic attack movements. After that, from the individual, we came to cooperation. And from cooperation, now we come to team play and strategy and tactical elements in our game. So today's topic is the attack against the defensive defense, which is the most challenging situation for the attackers. As you remember, open defense or playing in an open space is a little bit more comfortable for the attackers, more gaps and more options, whereas against the defensive defense, the situation is completely different. So that's why we have this in our process of education as the last step. Now, in this presentation, we have again the 3 chapters. The first one is the structure. So this will be the last time you will hear that chapter once again. Second, the preconditions, what is special in defensive defense, and what are the tasks and what are the consequences for the attackers. And third chapter, some examples, 2 altogether, very special, worked out for team tactics in attack against a defensive defense. Now, starting with the first chapter, again, we start with the beginning of an attack. And in the moment, the attackers, they go to the positions, then a so-called balanced situation is given. Against the defensive defense, this is a situation which is quite close to the 9-meter line of the opponent, because the defense, which is defensively organized, let's say in general a 6-0 defense, so the players in the defense take their positions around the goal area, protect the space there, and the attackers, they can move to the positions, they can go to wings on both sides, backward positions, one player in the pivot position, and they can circulate the ball. But still, in that balanced situation, they cannot immediately throw to the goal. They have to prepare the situation, and they have to come to a situation with a high probability of success to finalize the attack. And this is the so-called game advantage. So all the elements we have in the individual, technical, and the tactical, cooperation and team play, they are combined under the idea, or worked out under the idea, to achieve this game advantage and to allow a situation in which the attack can finalize with a high probability of success. Best situation would be only the player with ball or possessor against the goalkeeper. This is the situation which is the one which should be easily to solve. And on the other side, this is the situation, or in these situations, we have before a high number of repetitions produced, so that in that moment, the probability of success is very high, because the players have learned to work out this way of shooting very well. Now, this special term, game advantage, you know it already. It appears in 2 dimensions in our game. The first situation is the so-called game advantage first dimension, and this is given from a successful action of the player with the ball, one-on-one, going around his personal defender and free way to shoot to the goal. The only thing that can happen in that moment is second defender is coming for help, which is 4th basic principle in defense, and second attacker is running into free space. So we have the one-on-one pushing and the parallel movement and pass. So in this moment, we have the first type of cooperation between those 2 players. And again, we have this video from this very creative player from Romania. This is Cristina Neagu solving the situation one-on-one in that situation here. And in the slow motion, you can see that after the wing was running in, there's an isolated situation on the side. It's a 2-on-2. So we have the 2 defenders and the pivot between them, and we have the attacker with the ball. But in that moment, Neagu was feinting inside, make the defense believe that she will use the screen, and the defense, or her defender, immediately focuses on the pivot, because in that moment, when she would use the screen, the switch has to come. But as a surprise to the defense, Neagu takes the outside move in a single one-on-one situation to solve it successfully. Now, this was game advantage first dimension, and we have this game advantage second dimension as a variation of this, given in the moment when an attacker with ball is so close to the goal that he can shoot with a high probability of success. So we need the individual skills, shooting from the ground very fast or shooting from the air, shoot over the defender or shoot around the defender. So in a way that the goalkeeper might not see the ball too early and have only short time to react on that shot. But on the other side, the situation from that position here now is attacker, ball possessor with ball and shooting against goalkeeper and defender. And this minimizes a little bit the options for the player in attack because of the situation that the defense might block or might interfere by contact the movement of the attacker. And again, we have a nice example here from the Russian attackers. Now, it's not an individual action, it's a cooperation between the 3 players in the backcourt, a double crossing, and finally, left back can shoot from the center back position, and ball is inside. Now, the elements step by step. We can see the pivot first position, in the first action, positioned between the 2 inside defenders of the 6-0. The cooperation starts with a wide move from center back player to the gap between inside left and half left defender. And then we have the first crossing. So right back is in the position to give safety behind the ball possessor. In that moment, you can see open defending on the half position on the other side. But from that open position of the half defender, space is given in the back of that defender. And this is the space in which right back player has to attack too. Without dribbling, this is not possible. So she uses the steps and one bounce to move inside that area and draw her defender with her. This is quite important because now in the center area, we have only defender against pivot. And as you can see here, really open space given already. And now the second crossing is coming. So left back crosses behind and moves into the central area. So then she's creating a situation 2 against 1 in that central area. And this is a really comfortable situation now, because if defense would step out, she would give the pass to the pivot. If the defense is away from her, with a full move inside, she can shoot, so her throwing hand is free. And this is why we call this game advantage, second dimension, the throwing hand advantage in that moment. As you can remember from the 2 slides before, the situation of game advantage first dimension requires a little bit more space. So it's given more often against an open defense, whereas this game advantage second dimension should happen or should be achieved more often against the defensive defense. As an alternative concept, we have now the position advantage. This is given after a single action from the player or from a player without ball, as we can see it here in the movement from the center back, running around the player in defense, taking the better position, which is closer to the goal, but still without ball, it's only a position advantage. If the ball is given from the other position to that player, now position advantage turns into game advantage. We have the same with a small variation in a way that the pivot position now is on the same height, on the same line as the defender, but closer to the ball. So easily catching the ball and breaking through should be possible. And the closer to the goal line, the more difficult for the defender to come into the position, in a legal position, outside the goal area between opponent and goal. So that's why very often we ask or we expect our players in the pivot position to achieve this game advantage second dimension, because this is a very good action, which is now, after which it is possible to catch and to finalize the attack. Now, as we said before, this is not a screen. This is only a position advantage second dimension. Screen would require a movement from the player with the ball, without ball, to the defender of the attacker with the ball. And in that moment, when the screen is set, player with ball can move around. This is the help given from the screen. Enforce a switch from the defense, and maybe pivot can run free into that area. And then we have a cooperation in attack and reaction from the defense to that type of cooperation. That's why a single action of the player only in a positioning to his defender is not a screen, it's only a position advantage second dimension. And we have this third variation, which is the position advantage in the shadow of the defense. So on the same line, on the same height, but now the ball is here. So the defender has to observe ball and observe personal opponent, which is not possible if they are on one line. So by the moment the defense is observing the ball, then it's possible to run free in that area or in that space. And maybe with a lob or a bounce pass, the player can receive the pass here. And this is what we see in the position attack now in this first video from the Swedish team in attack with a backdoor movement of the player in the wing position, very nicely made. And you can see how position advantage is turned into game advantage from the very nice pass from the left back position. Starting the situation is the movement of the player in the wing position to the corner to open the space. Now running in, try to catch the ball from left back, but as you can see, defender, he sees that action and tries to intercept the pass. This is the moment when suddenly left wing turns the direction, changes direction, runs into the back of the defender, now achieving position advantage, and with the reception of the ball, turn it into a game advantage. Second chapter, after this small group cooperation, was from team tactics. So you can see here now the Romanian team using the crossing with the pivot or center back and the pivot. But as a surprise, left back is running in and completely free at the 6-meter line. So once again, step by step, easy to see. Now center back moves to the left side, pivot moving up and making the crossing behind. And everyone expects now, after the pass from center to right back, that left back will move inside the center area. But because of the open defense of the opponents, large space, huge space is given in the back of the defense. And this is the moment now left back is running in, achieving the position advantage in that area on the other side. And right back now with the pass moves this position to a game advantage. And then it's very easy to finalize that attack. So once again, we come back to our pyramid, the triangle, which should be a building, just to give you the idea that the wider the base is, the higher you can build it up. And in this, we see the 3 levels, the individual, the cooperation, and the team. And as you could see in our video examples again, in all 3 levels, so the individual, the cooperation, and the team, it's possible to achieve that game advantage. So we have the options in each level, and we divide first and second level, individual and cooperation, which is the so-called free play, free individual play, or free play in cooperation, using the elements like one-on-one pushing parallel, the crossing, the give and go, and the screen. And on the top of the pyramid, 4, 5, or 6 players involved, we have the special conceptions, but because of the higher level of complexity, the more players involved, we call this fixed play. Because in that type of conceptions, and you will see that afterwards, the ways of the ball and the ways of the players are fixed to a certain, till a certain point that on one side, the attack is starting the action with using individual or cooperation moves or with conceptions in the team. But from a certain point of time on, when defense reacts on that, different following actions have to be worked out from the players in attack. The more you decrease the number of solutions of your players, the more it's a fixed conception with only less or few options to react on what the defense does. So the more following actions you prepare in the training, the better your players should be able to react on almost everything the defense of the opponents is giving as an answer to the start of the conception. But please be aware that this takes time. So small number of following actions can be applied in the training very fast and worked out on a higher level, but the wider the range of different following actions you want your players to use, the more time you have to spend in the training sessions. Okay, now the 3 levels have to be worked out in different ways. The first is, again, the individual attack behavior, the actions without ball, the basic attack moves to the gaps, and especially the one-on-one with the ball, and here especially breaking through to the different sides, to the right and to the left side. And in general, this has to be developed in basic position or in another position. At least players in attack should be able to play in a very nice way on minimum 2 positions. Second is the cooperation in attack. We have the 4 different elements and we want them to be worked out as prescribed before with the different following actions and on the other hand with different positions. So after a crossing and after a screening, you will see the reaction of the defense. And if there's a switch, maybe if they are staying, on the other hand, this creates the situation or it creates a new situation. And now, as said before, the following actions, the different following actions have to be worked out from the attacker's side. If the attackers are well prepared, they can use those different types of cooperation in different positions, different variations of crossing, different variations of screening. This helps them to adapt to different types of defense. And finally, we come to the team play. We have the ball circulation and we have the conceptions, and this must be worked out against an open and a closed defense. So if possible, a special concept in attack with small variations, small adaptations only, could be used against an open or a defensive defense. This would save time in our training process. But in general, we have to differentiate between the ball circulation against the open defense and the defensive defense, and the conceptions that the players are using against open or defensive defense. So let's come to chapter number 2 and the preconditions when attack is playing against a defensive defense. And the first slide gives some characteristic elements of what is defensive defense. First of all, this is a defense that covers the space in the width of the goal. So we can make it a little bit more simple. If we speak about defensive defense, the most defensive way of defending is a 6-0 defense. All the players take their basic position at the 6-meter line, and this results in gaps that are very small. So we have 7 gaps altogether. It's the gap between baseline and first defender on one and on the other side, and the gap between all the other defenders. So altogether we have 7, but quite small gaps in that defense, which covers really the width in front of the goal in a very nice way. Second aspect is that resulting from that positioning, basic positioning of the defenders, there's only few space given for the wings and the pivot. Especially if 6 players are taking their position beside each other, the wings will be in a only small space on one side. On the other side, the pivot is standing in between those defenders. So using the defense in a defensive way does not mean always stay at the 6-meter line. even defensive defense systems, as you know from our presentations before, they can use some open elements for sure. But the movement of the player is not worked out like in a 3-1 open defense. So stepping out in a 6-0 defense means maybe to step out only to 8 or 9 meters maximum, and not in a basic position far outside 9 meters to attack the players in the backward position as early as possible. So that's why, because of these small movements, short movements up and down, there is some place for the pivot on one side, yes, but on the other side, this is smaller space only, and the space is given only for a short time, because if they run out, the defenders, to 9 meters only, and they can return very quick, the space is again closed, and that's why we speak of very few space only given for wings and pivot. Point number 3 is open space is given in that defense, but it is in front of the defense. So especially if the 2 half defenders and the 2 inside defenders of the 6-0 defense take their basic position at the 6-meter line, then in the central area, it's possible for the players in attack to use the different ways of attacking towards the goal. You remember, straight, inside and outside move. And on the other side, they can move from one to the other side. So using some ways for special variation of crossing, for instance. And a fourth aspect is that from this defensive defense, the ball circulation is not disturbed. So the backward players, they are not under pressure as much as against an open defense. As we said before, the open defense basically tries to decrease the space, decrease the speed of the ball, reduce the ball circulation, or the speed of the ball circulation. In that moment, it's very, very comfortable for the players to play against the defensive defense, because in that moment, they can circulate the ball more easily without getting constantly disturbed by the defense. Now, from these characteristic elements of the defensive defense, some tasks follow for the attackers. First task is that the attackers should create space in the width to keep that small gaps as big as possible. If from the positioning now, the players in the wing positions will come up and the players in the backcourt will come close to each other, then the defense will even come to that inside position more and more. And this will make the gaps smaller and smaller. Against the defensive defense, the gaps are already small. So space in the width has to be created from the players in attack to make the gaps as big as possible. Second is try to speed up the ball. Circulate the ball in a very quick way. Make the defense move so that maybe because of one player is moving, the other not so fast, the gaps are enlarged. They are getting a little bit bigger because of the circulation of the ball. Because if the players have a good positioning in attack and then the ball is very slow, it's easy to follow for the defense and always be in a good or in a correct position. But the faster the ball is circulated, the more the defense has to move, and then maybe for a short moment, gaps are opened. And number 3, use this use these gaps by quick realization of the throwing techniques. So if a gap is open, maybe you can break through, but shooting very quick, throwing very quick is something very important against that defensive defense too. because if the defense is at 6 meters, they cannot interfere against somebody shooting from 9 or maybe inside 8 meters. But this realization of the throwing has to be worked out very fast. In that moment, it's not always jumping over the defense, but shooting through, shooting from the ground, using the different variations. And when you remember the video we had from that position profiles, you can remember that there are so many very fast shootings nowadays made from backcourt players. They use it with right leg in front, left leg in front. They use it with the position of the parallel position of the feet. But the quicker they are, the better it is. Now, from these tasks in attack, we come to the 5 consequences the players in attack should follow to have a successful attacking against the defensive defense. So first is wide positioning once again. You remember our first basic principle in attack, it's open the central area. So with the wide positioning, wing players to the corner, backward left and right to the sideline. From that positioning, the defense has to move from one to the other side. So wing players in the corner, at least on the help side, away from the ball, to open the space, maybe on the side of the ball, coming up to the position where the 9-meter line crosses the sideline. But you will see that afterwards against that defensive defense, sometimes, or in some conception, it's really not needed to integrate the wing players. This is one of the great differences between attacking against an open or a defensive defense. Against an offensive defense, remember my words from the presentation before, I really want the wing players to be integrated in the ball circulation and in the starting of the attack, moving to the player between first and second defender. So this is the task of the wings in that moment. Now, against defensive defense, in general, this is possible too. But for certain elements in attack, as you will see them in our last chapter, we don't use the wings. We, first of all, give them the task to go to the corner, to open the space, and the ball is played, first of all, between the backward positions only. Second consequence is now basic attack moves, once again. So the 3 options of a backcourt player are moving straight, moving inside, moving outside, or from the center back position, moving straight to the right and to the left goalpost. This is more important now against the defensive defense because this will draw the defense in one direction more and more. And as I said before, when I was talking about the wing players, the gap between first and second defender is very important against the open defense. Against the defensive defense, it's the same. The gap between first and second defender is very important too. But now, very often, backcourt players, they make the move to that gap, which is for the left back, the outside move, and for the right back, the outside move too. So basic attack moves, very important. And as you will see afterwards, especially creating space by using one bounce. We will talk about that later. Third consequence is so-called special passing or variations of passing. If the ball is always circulated from one to the other position, the defense can move, and with the same rhythm of the ball circulation, the defense is going from one to the other side. If the attackers are using variations in their passing, for instance, suddenly change the direction of the passing or skip one position, then the defense is coming out of rhythm. And from that change of the ball passing rhythm, the defense rhythm must change. Maybe in that moment it helps to create a gap. So special passing is very much needed in attack to make the defense move. Okay, fourth consequence, as we said before, are the very quick throwings, especially from the backcourt players and especially from, I think, center back player, because if defense is drawn to one or the other side, then very quick shooting should be realized when the gap is open with a good angle to the goal. And consequence number 5 is cooperation with the pivot. Now, in that type of defense, the defensive defense, the task of the pivot is a little bit different to the cooperation against an open defense. Against the defensive defense, the task of the pivot is, first of all, create position advantage, second dimension for himself. Second is do cooperate with the players in the back for the screen. But now it's not the screen in the depth, it's the screen in the width. You will see some example in our next chapter. And in general, very important, while the ball is circulated, take a position inside the defense and try to cut the defense. Try to be like a big giant rock in the defense so that the movement of the defender is interrupted or stopped or is limited by the pivot in that moment. Because this helps to create bigger gaps if the defense always has to move around the defense. That's why in very many top teams in the world, you see now pivot players on a very strong physical level, because the defense in the center positions is always physically very strong. And if the task of the pivot is to cut the defense from their positioning, they have to be very strong too. So normally it's always the same players in attack and defense that work against each other in that way. So physical strong pivot is really needed. On the other, this type of action from the pivot causes some problems in our game structure, because very often this fight for the better position is not worked out in a very nice way. So we see some dirty actions from both sides, defense, grabbing the shirt and moving around in an illegal way. On the other side, attackers do the same. So sometimes their screening is not correct because they use the arms or the legs are spread too much apart. Or sometimes you can see even players in attack grabbing the shirt of the defender and to have an influence on their movement. So this is an element in our game which is not very nice, but International Handball Federation already has recognized this problem and is now, since 4 or 5 years, we can say, yes, since 2015, very strongly advising the referees to take care about these elements and to make it a more clean game in the pivot zone. Okay. Now coming to our last chapter and see the examples for the team tactics. As I said before, very important in that moment is the gap between first and second defender. So this is what in this first conception I want to introduce to you is the first part of the name. It's 1-2. So here you can see the 6 positions in defense: wing defender on both sides, half defender on both sides, and the 2 inside defenders in a 6-0 defense. So now we start with the 3 backcourt positions. You don't see the wings now, and you don't see the pivot. But this basic movement of this conception, 1, 2, 3, starts after a ball circulation from the 3 backcourt players with a movement from, or with a pass from center back to left back, but with a movement to the gap between the 2 is drawn in that area. And now the very special element is coming. This is something the attack wants, that the player is coming here. But now the movement from the player in attack is using a wide basic attack movement inside to attract and draw defender number 3. So this is some type of thinking we have to give to the player. Start attacking to the gap 1 and 2. If your personal opponent is coming, nice, but you don't fight with him. You move around and go inside and draw the second defender. And this is how we can create an advantage for the players in attack if one attacker is attracting a second defender, because then it's a number, or it's a numerical superiority given for the rest of the attackers. So in that moment, 2 elements are very important. First element is this straight move here. So you don't go here, or you don't go inside, because this will not attract the second defender in that way. You move really to that gap 1, 2, so that the defender must come far outside. Then, with the reception of the ball, change direction and move inside. But as you can imagine, 3 steps with the ball, it's not possible to come far inside and attract defender number 3. So that's why always this movement must be made with 1 bounce. It's very important to use the 1 bounce to create the space and draw number 3. Now, continuing is the pass to the center back player who is moving to the right goal post, passing immediately to right back player, and right back player should basically do the same, which means to attack to the gap between first and second defender on that side, draw defender number 2, and from that movement go inside with 1 bounce and draw defender number 3 on that side again. So as you can see from this, number 3 attracted here and drawn here, and number 3 on the other side here. So this is the way how the space in the center should be opened from this special move. In combination now with the pivot, this move to the gap 1, 2 is a perfect preparation for screen, not screening in the depth, but screening in the width. So we see in the right figure here, the same element now, pass from center to left back to the gap 1, 2, draw the defender outside, and this is the perfect position for the pivot to follow and to set the screen in this moment. Now move inside with 1 bounce, create space. If defense is not coming out or following the pivot, you can shoot. If defense is making a switch and number 3 is attracted here, pass to pivot is easily possible because he's now in the good position and run free and finalize the attack here. So this basic movement 1, 2, 3 can be made with ball or without ball, with pivot, I'm sorry, with pivot or without pivot. In general, it's a good opportunity to create space. Now, let's see how this is working in practical. In the first attack here, you can see the players in attack without a position. So in that moment, there was a 2-minute suspension and the team had to attack basically with 5 players only. But you can see the players, how they move and how they use the elements of that concept. Now, ball is circulated, and in the first step, now left back is moving towards the goal, to the gap 1 and 2, and the pass is given to the other side. Now right back player, this is a little bit of problem in that team at that moment. They don't have a left-handed player. So he's moving a little bit outside, but now with a bounce inside. Now you can see the proper move of left back player. Outside move and with a bounce inside. So this is the far way he's going to the inside position. And then center back circulates the ball to the other side once again. And now, I'm sorry for the bad movement of the players, but as you can see, this is a very important element. Pass is given to center back and pass is given to right back. Now in that moment, the left back player has to return. You can see him, he's in the center position, has to return to the left back position once again. But this needs time. This time is created by the moment right back player moves to the gap 1 and 2 and then moves inside and draw defender number 3. But right back player is not using this move. He is giving the ball directly to center back player. So in that moment, first of all, he cannot attract number 3. Second mistake in that moment is there is not enough time for the left back player to come back to his position again. So he receives the ball while he's moving to the left side. And now we need to integrate the wing player, move to the gap, and once again, inside, move from left back player, parallel pass from the player from the wing position, and in that moment, to shoot from the back. So once again, in real time. Passing the ball, gap 1 and 2, out in and out in, 2 quick back and out in again, finally scoring. Now, same team in attack against a different opponent, circulating the ball, out in, change of position, once again, on the other side, out in, and finally pivot is free. See it step by step. So you can see right back player, even he is a right-handed player, moving to the gap outside and then inside. Here, pass, and after this basic attack movement, coming back. On the left side, a change of position, once again, and now the situation starts. left back player moving to the gap 1 and 2, quite outside. Pivot is now between inside defender and half defender. From that movement outside, now with one bounce inside, and pivot is running free after the screen. But because of the open defender here, left back cannot shoot, and he's not able to see now the pivot. So the ball is given to the next position. And in that moment, when the ball is with the next position, now space in the center is free, pivot in a perfect position to receive the ball, and finally free in the center and shooting. So once again, circulating and starting now on the left, outside, inside, on the right, outside, inside, change of position here, and then on the left side again, outside, inside, continue, and finally score. Another example. Now, in general, there was a small mistake. And the mistake is made from the pivot in the first moment, because he takes the position now between the two inside defenders. Normally, we expect him in this gap between half defender and inside defender. Okay, ball is circulated, outside move in attack, and then inside move with one bounce, creating big space. And now the screen is set but it's against defender number 3. It's an inside defender. So this is defender number 4, 5, and 6. So the defense is really drawn on that side. Center player now makes the movement to the left side, to the right side, opening the space. And all the defenders now, they follow the pivot. Perfect for a special pass, which is the pass against the movement of the defense. All the defenders moving to the right side. Okay, pass now back to the left side. And again, very quick. Left back has returned to his position and could now attack to the gap between first and second defender once again. Outside, inside, back, and breakthrough here. So very easy to see how this concept is running in a way. And this is the last example here, and it's so simple, but it's really helpful. As you remember, the basic idea of the player in the backcourt left and backcourt right position is attacking outside and now inside to attract the next defender, which is number 3 here. Now, after a certain number of repetitions, defense will find that out. And then number 2, half defender, will very early move inside so that he can cover the left back, and no switch or no taking over from inside defender is needed. But if that half defender is moving inside very early, the gap 1 and 2 is open once again. So the player in attack now moves to the gap 1 and 2, draws the defender, and then after a short feint inside, he's moving to the gap 1 and 2 again. So it's an outside, inside, outside, an inside, outside move once again. So starting outside, short feint inside, and then going back. So from this, you can see that even individual actions are possible against that defensive defense on the basis of this concept 1, 2, 3. A second variation is the crossing from France national team that this team was using when they were so successful in the years 2011, 2012, 13, 14, and 15 with their very famous players, Karabatic and Narcisse especially. So this conception was designed in a way similar to the one you saw before. The starting of the conception here is a pass from center back to left back. And again, left back attacks to the gap between first and second defender. And this defender is drawn. So the pass is given, the player in attack moves, the defense is coming. But now, center back player is moving in that space, in that gap between defender number 2 and 3. And in that way, he draws the defense to come more to that side. In the center position, you can see the pivot screening. Now, after the pass from left back to center back, you will see it in the next pictures, then a crossing is made on that side. So from that crossing now, center back is moving inside, drawing defender number 3, but he does not want to fight with him. He wants to move to the other side again, using one bounce, so that the pivot changes his position from here to here. And this is the moment when they can shoot, or left back can shoot, can pass with the pivot, or can cooperate in another crossing with the right back player. You can see this in the video, very nice, like it is worked out in the game against Slovenia from the World Championship in Qatar 2015. Now, ball circulation, not too fast. I think it could be faster, but now starting, crossing, and shifting the play to the other side. So let's see in detail. They circulate the ball quite slow. From my point of view, should be faster. Okay, now the start of the action is, once again, movement from left back to the gap between first and second defender. So this is the movement here, and now pass is coming from center back player to the left back, and this one is really drawing the defense. Second is that, you can see it already, now center back is following to the gap between defender number 2 and 3. Meanwhile, pivot has set it a screen between the 2 inside defenders, trying to achieve a position advantage. Okay, now left back is moving, right center back is following, and in this moment, maybe with a quick throwing, center back can shoot. But now, as you can see, the defense is compressed on that side. It's a 3-on-3, maybe with the wing, it's a 4-on-4 on the left side, and it's open space given and a lot of space, 2-on-2 on the help side. This is why this defender is open here to avoid a pass. Now the crossing is made, and the big space open on the other side. Similar, like you saw it from the video of the Russian girls. So after the crossing, left back must use the way to the other side. Again, not possible with 3 steps, but with 1 bounce. Now using the steps and then try to use that area. Again, pivot before inside left defender. Now he's at the positioning or in the screening position at the inside right defender. So maybe left back can shoot now. Maybe he can pass to the pivot, or in that moment, right back player is coming around behind. So again, they shift the play to the other side, and again, they had safety behind the ball possessor. So finally now, right back player is in the center area, and again, it's the pivot who screens the defense, so that easy finalization is possible. See it once again. Circulating the ball. Movement to the gap 1 and 2, 2 and 3. Crossing, shifting the game to the other side. Second crossing, shooting. And the French team, they did this in a very consequent way. As you can see from the variations they were using out of that concept from the final game of the European Championship 2014. It was the match against Denmark, and you can see them using the same concept in attack. Now, the difference is that left back is Karabatic, center back is Narcis, but those two players, they can change the positions. It's no difference. Outside move, center back following, and now again, compressing the defense on one side with the bounce going to the other side. And now the defense is sleeping, so right back can run behind. And this is some aspect which is very important. You should remember from our presentation of team play in attack. It's always bring the decision makers into the game. And here you can see Karabatic is such a great decision maker. He will always find the best solution, like you see it here. So once again, they circulate the ball very easy. Now starting to the gap 1 and 2. Again, they pass. Now they go, pressurize the defense, 1, 2, 2, 3. And now defense reacts with an open movement. But for a player like Karabatic, this is something very nice because you cannot stop him in that situation when you're stepping out. Now Abalo, right wing, is running in, pass is given, and finally he scores. So, and this is the situation a player like Karabatic can use in a very nice way, that he will, after this movement and the options, use the options on the other side in a very successful way. In the final variation, you can see it again, how clever he does this and how much the defense is drawn in that moment. So once again, ball circulation. Now move to the gap 1 and 2. Center player follows to 2 and 3. Now the crossing is made. And you have again 4 against 4 on that side, but so much space on the other side. Now Karabatic is moving with the bounce. And you can see him now in the air. Maybe I shoot. Maybe I pass to the pivot. and he's feinting the pass to the pivot. But in the last moment, he decides to give the ball to the right back player who is coming around behind him. And now see the confusion of the defense and how much space in the center, how much space given for left back. It's almost perfect. So see it once again in real speed. Now change to the other side and you go. Okay. Now from these examples, I think several aspects should be clear. First aspect is, against the defensive defense, attacking the gap 1 and 2 is very important to draw the defense to the side and open the central area again, which is again our first basic principle in attack. Second is, individual skills are very important, especially now the basic attack movement of left back and right back with one bounce to the center area. Third aspect is, even against a defensive defense, some individual or small group solutions are possible in such a team conception. So always think of the pyramid, individual cooperation, team play. It's no use to introduce a complex team conception to your team without the basic elements or the basic skills of the players involved of that. And the fourth and last aspect in this, bring the decision makers into the game. In such conceptions, like we saw them here, it's really obvious to see that in a certain moment, the best decision maker should be in the position to decide. Don't give this task to somebody who is not so strong. So build up your conceptions in a way that the decision makers are in the game. Okay, so this was the end of that presentation. Now let's come to the chat and see if we have some questions. Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is what I can see here. Sir, where should the pivot player take position before the movement of backward player? Actually, to break the screen and come inside more, can you tell us the timing? So the position in that conception 1, 2, 3 is on one side between half defender and inside defender, but very close to the inside, maybe on the goalpost on that side. Then by the moment left back is moving outside and defender number 2 is drawn, then the movement of the pivot is coming. So this is the quite good timing, but if you go on the court, you will see that. So it's difficult to explain that now online. So you will see that when the players move, when the player in defense is drawn because of the movement outside, this is the correct movement. The player in the pivot position must set the screen, because then the surprise is, by the moment the player is moving inside, the defense is touching the screen. Okay, so this is the only question I see here. So please, Mr. Mohinder, take over. Are you there?
Thank you very much, Mr. Klaus. Again, today was the 19th class. So you have very nicely explained, and we have come to know that what is the difference in an attack when the defensive team is playing with defensive defense, and on Saturday it was against the offensive defense. So I think in that you told us how we can fill the gap and we can erect the screen in the width. Now here, that day it was in the depth. So our coaches will come to know about that, how to work, how the pivot will work in the depth and how the PP will work in the length. So width, sorry. So now my coaches my colleagues will learn a lot from this topic. Thank you very much. So see you tomorrow again with a new topic that will be again very informative for us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
See you
Sir.
tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. So dear colleagues, जैसा कि क्लाउस फेल्डमैन ने सैटरडे को जो हमें अटैक के मूवमेंट्स बताए थे, वो एडवांस डिफेंस के बारे में बताए थे, और आज वो डिफेंसिव डिफेंस के बारे में बताया कि अटैक कैसे करना है. So he has told us that there are 7 gaps. If we can see, so one gap is from the goal line to wing player, then wing to pivot player. So when the team is playing with 6-0, so there are 7 gaps are there if you will calculate yourself. Main aim is in this 6-0 defense or defensive defense, the player with ball will run into a gap जिसको हम वेव बोलते हैं. प्लेयर नंबर 1 जो विंग वाला है वो 2 और 3 का जो गैप है उसमें जाएगा, फिर 4 वाला पिवट की साइड जाएगा, 3 और 4 गैप में लाइक दैट. सो ये जरूरी नहीं है कि हमको विंग तक जाना है, हम कहीं भी अपना अटैक जहां हमें गैप मिलता है वहां हम फिनिश कर सकते हैं. सो इसमें मेन यही है कि अगर आपको विड्थ में गैप चाहिए तो आप बॉल रोटेशन बहुत फास्ट करेंगे. अगर आपका बॉल रोटेशन सही नहीं है, स्लो है, then you will not find the gap in the width. So width में सबसे ज्यादा जब 6-0 पोजीशन होती है तो एरिया कम हो जाता है. उसने बोला है कि जो विंग प्लेयर हैं वो डीपर जाएंगे, जो दोनों बैक प्लेयर हैं ये भी साइड लाइन से अपनी पोजीशन लेंगे कि सेंटर एरिया में पिवट के साथ जो कॉपरेशन है जिसको हम ब्लॉक एंड फ्री बोलते हैं, 6 स्क्रीन 4, 6 स्क्रीन 3, 6 स्क्रीन 2, ये हमारी मेथोडोलॉजी है और हम जैसे सीखे हैं और हम जैसे पढ़ाते हैं. सो ये ईजियर भी है हमारे लिए. सो मैं ज्यादा हिंदी में एक्सप्लेन नहीं करूंगा. अब मैं अब सीपी सिंह जी को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो हिंदी में हमारे कोचेस को और हमारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स को थोड़ा ब्रीफ में बताएं. प्लीज मिस्टर सीपी सिंह.
थैंक्स मिस्टर मैदर. आवाज आ रही है? हेलो. सो फ्रेंड्स, गुड आफ्टरनून. अटैक टैक्टिक्स की कंटिन्यूएशन में आज का जो टॉपिक था, इट वाज अटैक अगेंस्ट डिफेंसिव डिफेंस. सबसे पहले तो मैं ये परिभाषा समझ में आनी चाहिए कि डिफेंसिव डिफेंस क्या है. लास्ट क्लास में उन्होंने ओपन या ऑफेंसिव डिफेंस था. इन दोनों में फर्क इतना है, जब हम डिफेंस पे होंगे तो हम अटैकिंग प्लेयर का वेट नहीं करते. ऑफेंसिव जो हमारा उन्होंने लास्ट क्लास लिया था, दे कम आउट ऑफ द 9 मीटर लाइन, और जो प्लेयर बॉल के साथ है उन्होंने बताया था कि जो अटैकिंग में फर्स्ट स्टेप था कि जिस प्लेयर के पास बॉल है वो डेंजरस प्लेयर है, उसको हमने फर्स्ट प्रेफरेंस देना चाहिए. तो जो प्लेयर्स हैं डिफेंसिव प्लेयर्स, वो बाहर आके, जिसको हम अपनी लैंग्वेज में बोलते हैं, आउट ऑफ द 9 मीटर लाइन पे आके उनको बाहर चेक करते हैं, उनके मूवमेंट्स को रिस्ट्रिक्टेड करते हैं. बट डिफेंस में क्या है कि वो ज्यादा बाहर नहीं आते, बेसिक पोजीशंस लेंगे अपनी. उसके बाद जैसे उन्होंने मिस्टर क्लोज ने भी बताया था कि दे कम अप टू द 8 मीटर लाइंस और समटाइम्स अप टू द 9 मीटर लाइंस. तो अगर हम सीधी सी बात करें तो ये 6 नील डिफेंस के बारे में ही बताया उन्होंने, कैसे उस चीज को अटैक करना है. तो जब हम किस चीज के अगेंस्ट कोई चीज अप्लाई करेंगे, हमने डिफेंस के अगेंस्ट अपना अटैक करना है, तो उसके डिफेंस के बारे में नॉलेज होना चाहिए. व्हाट आर द बेसिक पोजीशंस प्लेयर्स का क्या है, बेसिक मूवमेंट्स डिफेंसिव प्लेयर्स का क्या है, उनका मोड ऑफ प्ले क्या होता है. तो उस केस में समझने के बाद ही हम अपने प्लेयर्स का जो अटैकिंग फॉर्मेशन है उसको डिसाइड करते हैं. तो बार बार जब भी वो लेसन स्टार्ट करते हैं मिस्टर क्लोज, वो 2-3 चीजों पे जोर देते हैं. उन्होंने सबसे पहले तो वही स्टार्ट करते हैं कि बैलेंस या अटैकिंग फॉर्मेशन. जब स्टार्ट हमारा अटैक होता है तो इक्वल नंबर ऑफ प्लेयर्स होते हैं. बैलेंस वर्ड का मतलब यहाँ पे है कि जितने डिफेंसिव प्लेयर हैं उतने ही हमारे पास अटैकिंग प्लेयर हैं. और गोल करने के लिए जब तक हम अपने ओपोनेंट्स को इंडिविजुअली या अपने टीम के साथ ग्रुप टैक्टिक्स या अपने प्लेयर्स के कोऑपरेशन के साथ अटैकिंग या स्कोरिंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्रिएट नहीं करते हैं, स्पेस नहीं करते हैं, तो पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं है गोल मारने के लिए। तो एम अटैक में यही है। तो बैलेंस को डिस्टर्ब करेंगे, जैसे हम बैलेंस को डिस्टर्ब करेंगे तो हमारा जो टीम है या कोई ना कोई प्लेयर है वो एक एडवांटेजियस पोजीशन में रहेगा। तो उसने दो सिचुएशन हमेशा एक्सप्लेन की हैं, एक गेम एडवांटेज और एक पोजिशनल एडवांटेज। और साथ में एक टैक्टिक्स वर्ड यूज करते हैं। टैक्टिक्स का सिंपल वर्ड ये है कि हमारे जो इंडिविजुअल स्पेशल इंडिविजुअल टेक्निक्स हैं उनको अप्लाई करके ओपोनेंट्स को बीट करना है ताकि उस सिचुएशन को हम एडवांटेज ले सकें। अब इंडिविजुअल था पहले, ग्रुप था, अब वो टीम के ऊपर उसको अप्लाई कर रहे हैं। अब जब उन्होंने बार बार वो पिरामिड दिखाते हैं, उस पिरामिड में वही आज भी उन्होंने ही मेंशन कि जितना स्ट्रॉन्ग आपका इंडिविजुअली होगा, बेस होगा, उतना ही आपके ग्रुप कोऑपरेशन ज्यादा होगा, उतना ही आपका टीम की परफॉर्मेंस वहां पे ज्यादा होगी। आप सभी को मालूम है, बार बार हम रिपीट कर रहे हैं, इंडिविजुअल अटैक बिहेवियर है वो विद बॉल भी है, विदाउट बॉल भी है। विद बॉल क्या है, फ्री निकलना है। विद बॉल क्या है कि हमें पासिंग स्ट्रॉन्ग होनी चाहिए, थ्रो ऑन गोल होना चाहिए, फेंटिंग वगैरह होना चाहिए। कोऑपरेशन में जब हम दो प्लेयर आपस में मिलकर काम करेंगे, एक दूसरे को हेल्प करेंगे, उस सिचुएशन का एडवांटेज लेंगे, दैट इज विद प्री डिटरमाइंड मूवमेंट्स। पहले डिसाइड करते हैं कि हमें ये मूवमेंट करना है। कुछ सिचुएशंस ऐसी आती हैं जब हम अपने प्लेयर्स की मूवमेंट को स्टडी करते हैं, वी मस्ट नो द आवर नेबरिंग प्लेयर्स, एटलीस्ट जो हमारे पड़ोसी प्लेयर हैं, कि मेरे साथ में जो विंग खेल रहा है उसकी क्या क्वालिटीज हैं, क्या स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट्स हैं, क्या वीक पॉइंट्स हैं, तब हम कोऑपरेशन करते हैं। और उसमें कोऑपरेशन में सिर्फ चारों ग्रुप टैक्टिक्स हैं जहाँ पे एक से ज्यादा हम प्लेयर्स मिलके काम करेंगे। उसके बाद फिर आज का जो था मेन टास्क, दैट वाज द टीम टैक्टिक्स। और टीम टैक्टिक्स पे यहाँ पे भी जो हमारे अटैक के 4 फेजेस हैं वो नहीं है, सिर्फ कहाँ से स्टार्ट करना है, जब हमारा बिल्डअप फेज स्टार्ट हो जाए, जब सभी प्लेयर अपनी अपनी पोजिशन लेंगे, डिफेंस अपना डिफेंसिव सिस्टम एडजस्ट करता है क्या करना उन्होंने, और अटैकिंग प्लेयर जो हमारा अटैक सिस्टम है वो हम डिसाइड करेंगे हमने 3-3 से खेलना है या 2-4 से खेलना है। तो अब इसमें जो 3 डायमेंशंस बताते हैं वो हर बार स्टार्ट करने से पहले, और जितने भी हमारी गेम की मूवमेंट्स होंगी, आइदर वी डू इंडिविजुअली और या हम ग्रुप के साथ करेंगे या टीम के साथ करेंगे, तो ये 3 डायमेंशंस ही होती हैं। सबसे पहला था गेम एडवांटेज। गेम एडवांटेज मीन्स यहाँ पे उन्होंने बताया कि जिस प्लेयर के पास बॉल है वो अपने प्लेयर्स को बीट करके फ्री निकलते हैं और गोल मारने की सिचुएशन में होते हैं, दैट इज द फर्स्ट डायमेंशन। अब गेम एडवांटेज और पोजिशनल एडवांटेज में फर्क इतना है कि एक प्लेयर के पास बॉल है बट उसका दूसरा प्लेयर अपने आप को फ्री निकाल के बीट करके फ्री है बट उसके पास बॉल नहीं है, दैट इज द पोजीशन एडवांटेज। अब उसको गेम एडवांटेज में हमने बदलना है, तो जिस प्लेयर के पास बॉल है वो उसको राइट टाइम पे राइट पास देगा विद अंडरस्टैंडिंग और उसका एडवांटेज लेता है, दैट बिकम्स द गेम एडवांटेज। उसके 3 डायमेंशंस हैं, बार बार उन्होंने बताया कि एक शैडो में होता है या प्लेयर गोल के पास होगा, तो वो चीजें नहीं है। हम आज बात करेंगे कंडीशंस क्या होती हैं जब हम सेट डिफेंस बोलेंगे या डिफेंसिव डिफेंस में बोलेंगे उसमें। तो इसमें जो चीजें ध्यान में रखनी है जब हमने अपनी अटैक करना है, टीम अटैक करना, टीम प्रैक्टिस करनी है, सबसे पहले तो ये देखना है कि डिफेंस जो है वो विड्थ में ज्यादा कवर करेगा, क्योंकि सभी प्लेयर 6 का उन्होंने एग्जांपल दिया है, दे टेक देयर पोजीशन ऑन द 6 मीटर लाइन, और यूजुअली क्या होता है इन फ्रंट ऑफ द गोल पोस्ट मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम। और वहां पे जो पोजीशन होंगी प्लेयर्स की, लास्ट में उन्होंने डिस्कस भी किया था कि जो टाल होंगे, स्ट्रॉन्ग प्लेयर होते हैं, हम उनको पोजिशनिंग करेंगे, क्यों कि इस केस में जो थ्रोन गोल पोजीशंस हैं वो गोल पोस्ट के सामने से ही होंगे, तो इफ टाल प्लेयर्स आर देयर दे विल रेज देयर हैंड्स, तो वहां पे होगा, तो उनके जो विड्थ जो है उसमें वो कवर करेंगे वहां पे, और सिर्फ बैक प्लेयर्स हैं उनके सामने जो स्पेस होती है वहां पे पासिंग पॉसिबिलिटीज हैं, जो एक डिसएडवांटेज हमारा ऑफेंसिव डिफेंस के अगेंस्ट खेलते हुए था। तो वहां पे डिफेंसिव डिफेंस के खेलते हुए अटैकिंग प्लेयर के लिए एक एडवांटेज होगा कि दे कैन सर्कुलेट द बॉल विदाउट एनी डिस्टर्बेंस। क्यों? क्योंकि जो डिफेंसिव प्लेयर हैं वो दे आर इनसाइड द 9 मीटर लाइन, वो एडवांस नहीं आ रहे हैं, तो वहां पे वो फ्रीली उस चीज को पासिंग करेंगे, बॉल के डिस्टर्बेंस होने की पॉसिबिलिटीज वहां पे नहीं है। तो दूसरा क्या है कि यहाँ पे एक डिसएडवांटेज एक और है कि जो डिफेंस है वो सभी प्लेयर 6 मीटर, तो विंग के लिए भी स्पेस कम है, और डिफेंस जो पीपी है उसके लिए भी वहां पे मूवमेंट्स करने के लिए पॉसिबिलिटीज कम रहती हैं। तो इन चीज को ध्यान में रखते हुए भी उन्होंने ये बताया था कि ये प्री कंडीशंस हैं कि हमने कैसे अपनी मूवमेंट्स को, विंग्स को बाहर की तरफ निकालना, मीन्स विंग्स को बोलेंगे ऑक्यूपाई द आउटर पोजिशंस, और जितना भी ऑक्यूपाइज करेंगे बाहर की पोजिशंस को उतना ही उनके पर्सनल डिफेंसिव प्लेयर है वो उधर की तरफ जाएंगे, तो बैक प्लेयर्स को कहीं ना कहीं गैप्स मिलने की पॉसिबिलिटीज वहाँ पे रहेंगी। तो अब यहाँ पे एक चीज जो सबसे बड़ी बात है कि जो गैप्स होंगे वो स्मॉल गैप्स होंगे, जैसे मिस्टर महेंद्र ने भी बताया, कम होंगे, ज्यादा नंबर हो सकता है, बट टाइम दैट इज वेरी शॉर्ट। जो गैप्स हैं वो बड़े कम टाइम के लिए होंगे, क्योंकि जो प्लेयर्स एक स्टेप आगे लेगा या 2 स्टेप आगे लेगा तो उसको वापस जाने में इतना टाइम नहीं लगेगा। तो यहाँ पे उन्हें एम्फेसाइज ये भी किया कि जितना हम फास्ट पास करेंगे, सर्कुलेट करेंगे, तो हम डिफेंस को प्रेशराइज करेंगे। अगर आपने स्लो पास किया है, एक बॉल दूसरे प्लेयर के पास जाने में टाइम लगेगा, तो डिफेंस के पास ही सफिशिएंट टाइम है, वो जाके पीछे अपनी पोजीशन लेगा और उस गैप को वहाँ पे कवर कर लेगा। तो यहाँ पे जो प्रैक्टिस्टिक्स जो इसका है, इसके अगेंस्ट खेलने का जो अटैक की टैक्टिक्स होनी चाहिए, सर्कुलेशन है जो बॉल का वो फास्ट होना चाहिए, और वाइड पोजीशनिंग उसमें हम रखेंगे, और बेसिक अटैक मूवमेंट्स। अब इसमें बेसिक अटैक मूवमेंट्स में क्या करेंगे, आपको विंग को इन्वॉल्व करना है, पीपीज को हम वहाँ पे इन्वॉल्व करेंगे, और जो बैक प्लेयर्स हैं उनकी जो शूटिंग एबिलिटी है, इंडिविजुअल एबिलिटी है, उनकी मूवमेंट्स हैं साइडवर्ड्स जितना भी जाएंगे, ट्राई टू पेनिट्रेट थ्रू, और जो शूटिंग एबिलिटी वो होना चाहिए, क्विक होना चाहिए, क्योंकि यहाँ पे जो थ्रोन गोल है बैक प्लेयर्स का मोस्टली फ्रॉम द इन फ्रंट ऑफ द अटैकिंग प्लेयर, और अगर जब वो आप अपनी इंडिविजुअल मूवमेंट से ब्रेक थ्रू करके गोल मारेंगे दैट इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग, और उसमें आप गैप्स को एडवांटेज लेना है। और जब आप उस गैप का जो मिनिमम टाइम के लिए गैप है, यहाँ पे यू हैव टू टेक ए वेरी क्विक डिसीजन। इतना लंबा टाइम नहीं होता कि वहाँ पे 2-4 पॉसिबिलिटीज होंगी, तो क्विक डिसीजन में हमने उस चीज को कंक्लूड करना है, सोचने में टाइम नहीं है। और यहाँ पे फिर बार बार उन्होंने एक चीज जो अंडरलाइन किया था, आपने भी सुना होगा, कि इंडिविजुअल बैक प्लेयर्स हैं उनकी जो शूटिंग एबिलिटी है वो वेरिएशंस होना चाहिए गैप्स के थ्रू। अब उन्होंने गैप्स के थ्रू का मतलब है समटाइम्स वी गो फॉर द हिप थ्रो, स्ट्रेट शॉट विद ब्लॉकिंग स्टेप या विदाउट ब्लॉकिंग स्टेप, उसकी जो वेरिएशंस हैं उस गैप को, मिनिमम गैप का एडवांटेज लेना, और क्विक एक्शन उसका वहाँ पे प्लेयर्स का होना चाहिए। तो लास्ट मैं इसमें करना चाह रहा हूँ कि जो पीपी के साथ है वो कोलोब्रेशन होना चाहिए। जैसे हम बोलते हैं कि पीपी जो है इज द टफेस्ट प्लेयर, और वो एक सैंडविच की तरह काम करता है। उन्होंने मेंशन भी किया कि कुछ इलीगल मेज होते हैं, प्लेयर्स को पुश करना है, उसकी शर्ट को ग्रैब करना है, पुशिंग करना है, क्योंकि वहाँ पे डिफेंसिव जो प्लेयर होंगे वो भी स्ट्रॉन्ग होंगे, हेल्दी होंगे, आपस में उनका टसल भी चलता है। तो जो एचएफआई ने भी रेफरीज को एडवाइस किया है कि इन चीज़ों को थोड़ा सा कंट्रोल करने के लिए रेफरी को भी वहाँ पे थोड़े रूल्स के रिलैक्सेशंस भी शायद उन्होंने दी है। तो इस आज की जो अटैकिंग जो टैक्टिक्स थी उसमें मेनली ये है कि वी हैव टू वर्क एज ए टीम, बट ओवरऑल स्टेप बाय स्टेप ये चीजें आएंगी। इंडिविजुअली आप कितने स्ट्रॉन्ग हैं, विदाउट बॉल आपकी क्या मूवमेंट्स हैं, पेनिट्रेशन थ्रू द डिफेंस, आपका ग्रुप में कौन कौन सी अब एक और क्वेश्चन मार्क यहाँ पे आता है कि जरूरी नहीं है कि जो हम 5-1 या 4-2 के अगेंस्ट जो मैक्सिमम पोजीशन चेंज या क्रॉसिंग करेंगे वो इस अटैक के डिफेंसिव सिस्टम के अगेंस्ट भी होगा। नहीं, वी हैव टू रिकॉग्नाइज आवर स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट्स। कोई भी टैक्टिस करेंगे हमें अपनी टीम के स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट्स क्या हैं, हमारे इंडिविजुअल प्लेयर्स की कैपेबिलिटीज क्या है, हाउ दे वर्क, उनका कम्युनिकेशन एबिलिटीज कितनी है, उनकी फिजिकल एबिलिटीज क्या है। तो उसी को मान के हम स्ट्रेटजी करेंगे। हमने 6-0 के अगेंस्ट भी कौन से पॉसिबल कॉम्बिनेशंस या कोऑपरेटिव मूवमेंट्स हैं या दो प्लेयर्स के मूवमेंट्स हैं, उनको कैसे हमने वहाँ पे अप्लाई करना है। तो आई थिंक दिस इज सम अप जो उन्हें मेन चीजें जो बताई, जो मैं आपको सिर्फ बताना चाह रहा था, बट बार बार वही एम्फेसाइज करना, डायमेंशंस हैं, पोजीशन एडवांटेज को आपने गेम एडवांटेज में कैसे टर्न करना है, दैट इज इम्पोर्टेंट। आई थिंक दिस इज एनफ। एंड एक क्वेश्चन था, सॉरी मैं क्वेश्चन लेता हूँ, वो आपने पूछा था किसी ने, 6-0 डिफेंस वी शुड यूज सडन चेंज इन द पासिंग राइट टू लेफ्ट और लेफ्ट टू राइट। ये तो डिपेंड करेगा आपके प्लेयर्स की क्या मूवमेंट है, आपकी बॉल सर्कुलेशन स्लो है या नहीं है, आपके विंग कितने स्ट्रॉन्ग हैं, उनकी मूवमेंट्स। बार बार उन्होंने भी ये कहा कि आपको फर्स्ट और सेकंड विंग को फर्स्ट और सेकंड डिफेंस में अटैक करना चाहिए, जिसको मिस्टर महेंद्र ने बोला था कि वेव सिंपली वर्ड यूज करते हैं। जब तक हम दो प्लेयर को अटैकिंग प्लेयर का जो टेक्टिकल हम मूवमेंट्स मानते हैं वही कि आपको यू अटैक द गैप्स एंड बी ए थ्रेट। जब तक आप थ्रेट नहीं देंगे, जब तक आप गैप्स को अटैक नहीं करेंगे, तो आप नेक्स्ट डिफेंसिव प्लेयर को अपनी तरफ नहीं कर पाएंगे। अब ये जो क्वेश्चन है इसमें आपके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है आपकी प्लेयर्स की क्या पासिंग एबिलिटीज है। उनको वेरियस पासिंग मूवमेंट्स आती हैं। सपोज करो आपने प्लेयर नंबर 4 ने प्लेयर नंबर 5 को पास करना, तो उसकी लॉन्ग पासिंग एबिलिटी क्या है उसकी, क्या सिर्फ एक ही वेरिएशन आती है उसको? उसमें ये भी देखना कि अगर पास करेगा तो उसकी पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ डिस्टर्बेंस है क्या नहीं है। तो लेटर रिलेशनशिप विद द पासिंग प्लेयर। तो मुझे लगता है कि प्रैक्टिस में आप जितना भी उसको वर्कआउट करेंगे, उसकी डिसीजन मेकिंग एबिलिटी होगी, उनके इंडिविजुअल स्ट्रॉन्ग होंगे, पासिंग टेक्निक्स वेरिएशंस होंगी उस पासिंग प्लेयर। मैं आपको एक चीज़ बताता हूँ कि जर्मनी में वहाँ पे बोलते हैं कि एक अच्छा प्लेयर वो नहीं है कि जो दूसरे प्लेयर की गलती को वहाँ पे बताएगा ड्यूरिंग द गेम। एक अच्छा प्लेयर वो है कि अगर किसी प्लेयर ने मिस्टेक किया तो उसको रेक्टिफाई करेगा। यूजुअली हम क्या बोलते हैं कि यार तूने गलत पास कर दिया, ऊपर देना चाहिए था, ठीक है, उससे तो बॉल तो रिलीज हो गई है, वो क्या कर सकता है, ही कैन नॉट डू एनीथिंग। बट नाउ जिस प्लेयर ने बॉल को रिसीव करना है, हाउ ही मेक द एडजस्टमेंट, हाउ ही एडजस्ट हिज बॉडी, कैसे उसको बॉल को रिसीव करके उसको गेम को कंटिन्यूएशन में ला सके। So that's I wanted to add, and now over to Mr. Mehndar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. C.P. Singh, for explaining very nicely. You have explained to our participants. Now I request Mr. Harinder Pal Singh to brief in Hindi also as per your own observation. Please.
गुड आफ्टरनून एवरीबॉडी। मेरा तो ज़्यादा बोलने का काम नहीं है, पर मैं कुछ चीज़ों को एम्फसाइज करूँगा। बिकॉज ऑफ द डिफेंसिव बिहेवियर हमने ज़्यादातर देखा कि 6-0 में जो वीडियोस आपने देखी हैं, इसके अंदर ऑब्जर्व की हैं, तो उसके अंदर जो प्लेयर्स की मूवमेंट है वो विड्थ के अंदर ज़्यादा है, दैट इज साइडवर्ड मूवमेंट्स डिफेंसिव प्लेयर्स की। और उनका जो उद्देश्य है साइडवर्ड मूवमेंट का वो यही है कि गैप्स ना दिए जाएं, कोई स्पेस जिस तरफ को बॉल है ना छोड़ी जाए। तो इसलिए जो मूवमेंट्स हैं वो साइडवर्ड मूवमेंट्स हैं, विड्थ के अंदर मूवमेंट्स हैं। उनको इस बात की चिंता नहीं है कि बाहर से कोई जंप शूट लंबी दूरी से मार देगा, बिकॉज जो क्वालिटी ऑफ प्लेयर्स सेंट्रल में जो 2 डिफेंडर्स हैं, जिसको ये इनसाइड डिफेंडर्स बोलता है, ठीक है, वो 2 डिफेंडर्स हैं, क्वालिटी उनकी फिजिकल एबिलिटीज जो हैं, लंबे हैं, चौड़े हैं, स्ट्रॉन्ग बिल्ट हैं, तो उनको इस बात की चिंता नहीं है। अब रहा सवाल कि विड्थ में जो गैप्स हैं वो अटैकर्स क्रिएट कर रहे हैं किसकी मदद से? तो पहला होता है बाय द विंग प्लेयर। अब जब हमने विंग को ओपन कर लिया है तो आपने वीडियोस के अंदर देखा कि द मैक्सिमम बॉल सर्कुलेशन इज बिटवीन 3 प्लेयर्स। 3 प्लेयर कौन से हैं? लेफ्ट बैक, सेंटर बैक, राइट बैक। अब इनके बीच में सर्कुलेशन है बॉल की मैक्सिमम, जितनी पासेस दी गई ये इनके बीच में है। यहाँ जो विंग अटैकर था वो पोजीशनल एडवांटेज लेके वहां पर खड़ा है स्टैटिक पोजीशन में। अब जो लेफ्ट बैक है, ध्यान रखना है कि जब हम स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं तो लेफ्ट जो बैक है और राइट बैक है ये कहां से स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं? तो लेफ्ट बैक जो है वो अपनी पोजीशंस को आउटवर्ड टुवर्ड्स दी साइड लाइन की तरफ लेके जाता है। उसका मकसद होता है कि जो हाफ डिफेंडर है वो भी उस तरफ को मूव करे, उसके सामने आए, बिकॉज बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स जो डिफेंस के हैं वो कहते ही ऐसा है। और साथ में क्या होता है कि जो पिवट है जिसने अपनी पोजीशन इनसाइड डिफेंडर के साथ ले रखी है, जब हाफ डिफेंडर उस तरफ को मूव करेगा तो और वो लेफ्ट बैक प्ले डाउन करेगा अंदर की तरफ 3 स्टेप बाउंस के साथ, तो वहां पर वो अपनी पोजीशन लेता है स्क्रीनिंग पार्ट के लिए। तो ये एक चीज है। दूसरी बात है जो सेंटर बैक है वो भी इधर को मूव कर रहा है आउटनंबरिंग सिचुएशन क्रिएट करने के लिए, मतलब खुली स्पेस देने के लिए 2 on 2 या वॉट एवर इट इज, जहां पर दूसरी तरफ राइट बैक के लिए। तो इस चीज का तो वो स्पेसेस को बड़ा कैसे करना, ये आपके इंडिविजुअल प्ले से है कि आप पोजीशंस को विड्थ में कहां तक लेके जाते हैं और कैसे मूव करते हैं, बिकॉज वो सबसे डिसाइडिंग फैक्टर होता है गेम का कि आप किस दिशा में जा रहे हैं और किस तरफ जा रहे हैं और किन के बीच में जा रहे हैं, किन डिफेंसिव प्लेयर्स के बीच में जा रहे हैं। अब बहुत सारे प्लेयर्स हैं, अगर लेफ्ट बैक आउटसाइड विंग डिफेंडर और हाफ डिफेंडर के बीच में जा रहा है तो इसका मतलब है वो विंग प्लेयर के लिए क्रिएट कर रहा है, विंग प्लेयर के लिए, क्योंकि वो पोजीशनल एडवांटेज में है, पास मिलेगा, गेम एडवांटेज में आ जाएगा। अब जब सेंटर बैक्स आपस में खेल रहे हैं तो वो हाफ डिफेंडर और जो दो मिडिल डिफेंडर्स हैं उनके बीच में जाने की कोशिश करते हैं। तो ये गैप्स को क्रिएट करना आना चाहिए आपकी मूवमेंट के साथ। हमारी जो मूवमेंट्स हैं ज्यादातर टूवर्ड्स डिफेंसिव प्लेयर होती हैं, वो नहीं होनी चाहिए, टूवर्ड्स विड्थ के अंदर होनी चाहिए, दो ऑक्यूपेंसी के पास। और जिसको भी मौका मिलता है, जितना गैप मिलता है शूटिंग का, तो हमारे पास शॉर्ट आर्म एक्शन है, क्विक फ्लिक्स हैं और थ्रू शॉट्स हैं, उनका इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए गोल को स्कोर करने के लिए। मैंने इतना ही कहना था। थैंक यू। ओवर टू मिस्टर महेंद्र।
Thank you, Mr. Harinder Singh ji. You have also added few things. So, मैं आपसे सिर्फ 2 मिनट में आपको यही बताऊंगा कि जो अटैक या डिफेंस वो राउसफेल्ड में जी करवा रहे हैं उसमें कुछ वाइटल पॉइंट्स हैं। अगर टीम 3-3 सिस्टम से खेलती है या 2-4 से खेलती है और डिफेंसिव टीम डिफेंसिव डिफेंस करती है या ऑफेंसिव डिफेंस करती है या कंबाइंड डिफेंस करती है या मैन टू मैन डिफेंस करती है, हम उनको नहीं रोक सकते कि डिफेंसिव टीम के हिसाब से खेलेगी अगर आप अटैक की बात करेंगे। तो उसने जो पॉइंट्स दिए हैं कि एक तो आपने अपनी पोजीशन का ध्यान रखना है, वाइडर पोजीशन जिसे उसने बोला है कि अगर विड्थ कम है 6 मीटर पे 6 मिल है तो विंगर जो है बिल्कुल 0 एंगल पे चले जाएंगे। अगर वो 3-2-1 से खेल रही है डिफेंस में तो विंगर अगर थोड़ा सा अंदर को भी आ जाएंगे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, अगर वो अंदर को जल्दी चले जाएंगे तो बॉल रोटेशन में थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम आएगी। तो दूसरा उसने बोला है कि बेसिक अटैक मूवमेंट्स आप किसी भी अटैकिंग सिस्टम में हो, दोनों में से 2-4 में और वो किसी भी डिफेंसिव में, हमारी जो बेसिक होंगे जो मूवमेंट्स होंगी वो डिफरेंट होंगी, वो सभी में एक जैसी नहीं होंगी। अगर हम 2 पीपी से खेल रहे हैं तो हमारी डिफरेंट मूवमेंट होगी अटैक में, अगर वो सिंगल पीपी से खेल रहे हैं हमारी डिफरेंट होगी, अगर हम डेप्थ में खेल रहे हैं तो डिफरेंट मूवमेंट होगी, अगर हम विड्थ में खेल रहे हैं तो डिफरेंट मूवमेंट होगी। ये हमने बच्चों को एजुकेट करना है, पर हमारे स्टूडेंट्स क्या करते हैं एक ही मूवमेंट में खेलते हैं, वहां पता चलता गैप नहीं मिला। जब टीम 5-1 खेलती है फिर भी वही काम करते हैं, जब 6-0 खेलती है फिर भी वही काम करते हैं, जब वो 4-2 से खेलते हैं हम वही मूवमेंट्स करते हैं। सो वी हैव टू एजुकेट एंड टीच आवर स्टूडेंट्स कि जिस डिफेंसिव सिस्टम में वो खेल रहे हैं उसी के हिसाब से ही हमने मूवमेंट्स को एग्जीक्यूट करना है, उनको पढ़ाना है। तीसरा पॉइंट उसने बोला है स्पेशल पासेस। अगर सिंगल पीपी है, डबल पीपी है, आजकल आपको पता है कि वो पढ़ाएगा 7 अटैकर आ जाते हैं गोलकीपर बाहर, तो पासेस में भी डिफरेंशिएशन है, डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ पासेस में भी वेरिएशन आ जाएगी, वो सेम पास नहीं रहेंगे। जैसे 2 पीपी खेलते हैं मोस्टली हम बाउंस पास की ट्राई करते हैं कि दोनों में से किसी को मिल जाएगा, तो स्क्रीन के टाइम भी हम कई बार बाउंस पास दे देते हैं, हाई पास इंटरसेप्ट हो जाता है। तो वी विल कीप इन माइंड द वेरिएशन इन पासेस आल्सो व्हेन वी आर प्लेइंग इन अटैक एंड दे आर प्लेइंग इन डिफरेंट सिस्टम इन डिफेंस। सो तीसरा क्विक थ्रोइंग, उसने बोला है कि जहां आपको गैप मिले, चाहे वो विंग है, चाहे वो बैक पे है, चाहे सेंटर में है, immediately throw. If you are in a standing position, you feel there is a gap, you go for hip throw, you go for SSB, you go for jump shoot one step high and throw. So don't go for one bounce. If you will put one bounce to cover the distance, meantime the gap will be filled, फिर आपके लिए वो प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी, फिर आप आगे पास करेंगे। सो आजकल जो गेम है ये आपको मालूम है कि पैसिव प्ले का गेम हो गया है, जितना आप रोटेट करेंगे उतना फिर 4 वार्निंग सिग्नल का डर रहेगा और फिर मिस पास होगा और जो थ्रो ऑन गोल होगा वो प्रॉपर नहीं होगा, क्योंकि 4 वार्निंग के बाद आपको पता ही है कि हम 6 पास कर सकते हैं। तो जो सबसे लास्ट है वो है कोऑपरेशन। सो कोऑपरेशन मैंने आपको बोला है कि वो कहता है कि स्मॉल ग्रुप प्रैक्टिस करिए, जैसे आरओपी है, आरएपी है, स्क्रीन है, PCH है। अब वो क्रॉसिंग कहता है, उसको हम PCH बोलते हैं पोजीशन पे। अब वो डबल क्रॉसिंग कह रहा है तो उसको हम पोजीशन चेंज प्लस पोजीशन चेंज करते हैं। सो हमारे ही ग्रुप का टैक्टिस जो है स्मॉल ग्रुप टैक्टिस, जब हम इनको दो को मिला देते हैं तो ये एक टीम कॉम्बिनेशन बन जाता है। जैसे वेव है, 7 से स्टार्ट हुई 5 पे खत्म हुई, तो हम बोलते हैं 7-4 ROP, फिर 4+3 ROP, फिर +3 2 ROP, फिर +2 5 ROP। सो 5 ROP मिला के एक टीम कॉम्बिनेशन बनता है, जिससे हमारा विंग से गोल होता है। अगर हम 7-4 ROP करते हैं, फिर 4-3 करते हैं, पिवट का स्क्रीन मिल जाता है, तो ये भी ROP प्लस स्क्रीन मिला और 3 पैरेलल जाके गोल कर देता है 6 नंबर पोजीशन से। सो ऑलवेज द कोऑपरेशन इज रिक्वायर्ड व्हेन यू आर प्लेइंग इन ए फिक्स प्ले। जब फिक्स अटैक होगा तो कोऑपरेशन की जरूरत है। अगर आप इंडिविजुअल खेल रहे हैं, फ्री खेल रहे हैं, देन यू कैन एग्जीक्यूट योर मूव एंड योर टेक्निक इन ए इंडिविजुअल मैनर। सो इफ वी विल प्रैक्टिस इन ए ग्रुप देन वी कैन यूज एन अटैक। सो इतना ही था आज का। सो थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर लिसनिंग एंड पेइंग अटेंशन। सो फिर आपको ये बता दें लास्ट में जाते हुए कि 30 तारीख का जो पेपर है वो इन्हीं टॉपिक्स में से आएगा और विद ऑप्शन आएगा, और कोई बाहर से नहीं आएगा, आउट ऑफ सिलेबस नहीं होगा। जो आपने पढ़ा है और जो आप क्लासें अटेंड करेंगे वो इसी से ही हम पेपर बनाएंगे, और ये पेपर जो है वो 22 तारीख के बाद ही सबमिट किया जाएगा आपकी कंप्लीशन ऑफ दीज टॉपिक्स। और इनमें से ही आएगा the way we put that we will not describe here. So please get ready for the examination. Thank you very much. Have a good day.